Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you who are new here, welcome. My name is Erica, and I post mostly about disability. I post disability friendly workouts and some commentary videos and whatnot. But today, my video is going to be a lot less structured. I really want to talk about the situation that is going on with YouTuber Gabbie Hanna and her ongoing fights with other YouTubers like Rachel Oates and also other YouTubers that I don't really know that well. But so if you don't know who Gabbie Hanna is, that might be for the best. She is, I think she's started her career on Vine, which is now a defunct website. But so Vine, if you don't know, it's basically like TikTok is now, but it was back in the day. And I think it was the early 2010s. I never really used Vine, but I knew lots of people that did. So I don't exactly know how it works because just like Vine, I don't use TikTok. So I don't know how that works either. But it's basically like short little videos that people make. So that was how her career started, and then when Vine was done, she moved her content over to YouTube and became a YouTuber. Sorry if I am losing my voice. I have really bad allergies, so I'm losing my voice. My nose is running, my eyes are watering, and if that bothers you, I am so sorry, but that's just how it is today. So she moved over to YouTuber, and then she became a singer, and she wrote a poetry book and all sorts of that stuff. But basically, she's first and foremost a YouTuber, and she was able to become a writer and a produced singer because she was already famous. But she's not necessarily more talented than anybody else. She just had that opportunity because of her fame, which is totally fine. But if you don't know who Rachel Oates is, she runs a commentary channel here on YouTube, and I am a big fan of hers. I doubt Rachel has ever watched any of my videos, but Rachel, if you are watching this, I'm a big fan of yours. I think you do commentary really well, and you always say such insightful and intelligent things about things that are going on YouTube and just in the world in general. But basically, Rachel, a few years back now, she hosted a video reviewing Gabbie Hanna's poetry book, and her review was not the most glowing review because, well, I've got to admit, I've never personally read Gabbie's poetry book, but I've read a few poems here and there that have been posted on the internet, and it's not the best poetry I've ever read. It's not my taste, and that's fine. I don't think it's good, but I don't have to think it's good. But the thing is Gabbie is flipping out on people. She flipped out on Rachel. She got all her fans to report Rachel's Instagram, so her Instagram was taken down for a few hours. She's obsessively posting Instagram stories calling anybody that critiques her an abusive bully and calling them like narcissistic abusers, which is like, just because someone is critiquing your work doesn't mean they're attacking you as a person. Rachel, from what I've seen, has never personally attacked Gabbie. Now, if there is information out there that she has, I will change my mind and say I was wrong. But at least from what I have been able to see, Rachel has only really gone after Gabbie's poetry. And that's fair. Like, she's allowed to say your poetry isn't good. Like, it's not good, Gabbie. You need to work on this. But Gabbie is not okay with that. She has to yell and scream and call people names. And then, what really got me to talk about this is kind of a side tangent, but it will kind of, it will tie into the bigger point of this video. But I think it was a few months ago now, on Twitter, so disability rights activists on Twitter started this thing called a tone indicator. So basically, if the tone of your message isn't clear, like if you say something sarcastic in a tweet and maybe somebody who's autistic or who's neurodivergent in some other way, if they may not readily know that by just reading the tweet, you should put a tone indicator to say this is sarcasm and I don't mean this literally, which is great because we need more awareness about disability and we need more people to be willing to be like, what I'm doing may not be accessible to all people, so I'm going to try to do my best to make my message accessible to all people. But Gabbie, when she saw that, she had to write that people were doing too effing much, like as if to call people, like it was basically akin to calling people snowflakes for saying some people need tone indicators and this can help social media be more accessible to more people. So then Gabbie went at that for a few hours, and then a few hours later she posted about tone indicators being this great thing for autistic and other neurodivergent people, which is great. But the thing was, she never acknowledged that she caused hurt in the first place. She kind of acted like, oh look, I found this great thing, and it's like, no, Gabbie, you really messed up there and you hurt a lot of people. And the reason I'm bringing that story up is because on Gabbie's big tirades on Twitter and Instagram, Gabbie says she was like, I find it so ironic that people are calling me ableist when I am extremely neurodivergent. Now, I don't know what extremely neurodivergent means because you're either neurodivergent or you're neurotypical. And of course, there is a spectrum of neurodivergence, but I don't know if I would put Gabbie that far on the spectrum, and fair, it's not really up to me to decide, but from what I understand, Gabbie has ADHD and borderline personality disorder and some other mental health issues, which, like, that's fair. He has those, but she's weaponizing those diagnoses against people that are like, hey, you're being ableist right now. And she's like, I can't be ableist, I'm neurodivergent. And if you watched one of my previous videos about ableism within the disabled community, you know that you're able to be disabled and still be ableist, especially towards people with disabilities that may be different from your own. So Gabbie, being that she has ADHD and borderline personality disorder, she could still be ableist towards, like, autistic people or people with cerebral palsy or just basically anybody. So Gabbie using that is really offensive, but also not just that, because of course, unfortunately, this whole debacle does not stop there. Gabbie also, anytime she's called out for her toxic behavior and her screaming at people on Twitter and getting her fans come after people, she then says, I'm neurodivergent, I can't help that. But it's like, Gabbie, yes, you can have a mental illness, you can have a very severe mental illness and still be working to do better. And then when you do mess up, when you do hurt people, instead of hiding behind your mental illness and being like, that wasn't me, that was just my mental illness, insert haggy meme. But so you shouldn't use your mental illness to excuse bad behavior. This is a very personal topic for me because my freshman year of college, I basically had a mental breakdown, and I don't use that term lightly at all. Like, I legitimately had a mental breakdown. I was paranoid. I didn't talk to people. My eating disorder was really bad, and basically I wound up in a mental hospital, and I didn't get to finish my first semester of college. I did it later, but at that time I didn't get to finish my semester on campus. And I did some pretty terrible things during that time, and even since then, like, when I look at my behavior from like 2 years ago, like, I can see some toxic behaviors, so some toxic patterns of behaviors. And yes, I did those things because of my mental illness and because I may be compelled to do or say things that other people may not be compelled to do. But that doesn't mean that I get to go around and keep doing that and blaming it on my mental illness. I work really hard to regulate myself so I don't hurt myself, so I don't hurt other people, and just so I'm not an overall toxic person. Of course, here and there I'm gonna mess up and I may say bad things to people, but I really try my best to work on not doing that. And that is what Gabbie ultimately needs to do. She needs to take accountability for herself, whether she's mentally ill or not. At the end of the day, it's up to you how you grow or don't grow as a human being. And I don't mean that in that whole self-help way, like you control your own destiny, because that's BS. I don't believe in that, because I do believe there are lots of systems of oppression that hold people back for many reasons, whether it's disability, race, age, size, gender, sexual orientation. Like, there definitely are systems of oppression, so I don't believe, like, oh, if you just work hard, your life will be so much better. But I do believe in this case, when your pattern of behavior is being toxic, and when it's ruining your relationships, and when it's ruining your career, because ultimately this is ruining Gabbie's career, and I don't mean that in a very nasty way. I mean it to wake Gabbie up and to say that it's not too late to change. I do hope that Gabbie changes. I hope that she gets whatever help she may need, or whatever method helps her personally. Like, I don't want people to walk around being toxic and ruining their own lives. I want people to do what's best for them and what's best for everybody around them. But unfortunately, right now, Gabbie's not doing that. She's hiding behind her mental illness, and when anybody calls her out, she calls them ableist, or says they just don't understand her, and like, this isn't her fault. But it is her fault. It's not her fault that she's mentally ill, but if she's not choosing to work on herself and not choosing to be like, yeah, I have this mental illness, but it doesn't have to control my entire life. Like, I can still have healthy relationships and be mentally ill. It's just gonna take a hell of a lot more work than it might for somebody who's not mentally ill. And yeah, that sucks. I'll be the first to say that, but ultimately, if you want to have healthier relationships, if you want to just be an overall better person, that's up to you. It's not up to her mental illness. Like, yeah, your mental illness does affect you, and I'm never gonna say it doesn't, but you still have to work on it and better yourself. And don't just make excuses and be like, oh, I can do whatever I want because I'm mentally ill. Like, no, you're still harming people, whether you're mentally ill or not. And I think that's all I really wanted to say for this video. It actually turned out to be a bit longer than I anticipated it to be. But if you know me, I tend to ramble on about things. But I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it made you think a little bit about things. And please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and if you have not already, please consider subscribing. Again, I do a lot of social commentary, I do reaction videos, I do disability friendly workouts, I do disability content in general, I do story times, I just do a whole bunch of stuff mostly related to disability, but that does intersect with a lot of other topics. So if you would be interested in that, please click the subscribe button, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again next time.